Good evening, dear listener, and welcome back, Sleepless Historian, to another long and gentle journey through the quiet corridors of ancient memory, where myth drifts softly into history and history drifts softly into dream. Tonight, as the world outside dims and folds itself into darkness, I invite you to rest your mind and allow the slow cadence of this story to settle like mist around you, carrying you into a quieter, calmer space. This evening, we wander into one of the oldest and most enduring stories from the Greek world, the story of Prometheus, a titan of foresight, a shaper of humankind, a bringer of fire, and a figure whose legacy glows faintly across thousands of years of human imagination. His tale exists somewhere between myth and philosophy, between creation and rebellion, between the bright warmth of knowledge and the cold shadow of consequence. Tonight, we will unfold the entire story of Prometheus in a slow and measured rhythm, exploring where he comes from, what he creates, why he defies the king of the gods, and how his choices echo into the human world as we understand it today. You and I will travel first into the earliest cosmos, long before mortals walked the earth, when the universe was young and shapeless, and the Titans emerged from primordial darkness. From there, we will follow Prometheus as he shapes the first humans from earth and water, watching the delicate forms come to life beneath his thoughtful hands. We will drift through the quiet moment when fire enters the world, and the equally quiet but heavier moment when Zeus realizes how deeply Prometheus has changed the destiny of humankind. We will meet Pandora, whose story unfolds slowly like a breath released into the air, and we will ascend, little by little, to the lonely mountain ridge where Prometheus endures the long consequence of his compassion. And finally, with patience and gentleness, we will witness his release, and think about why his myth has lingered so long in the human imagination. As always, dear listener, before we begin, I would love to know where in the world you are listening from, and what time it may be for you. Whether you are resting after a long day, settling into bed with a heavy blanket, lying awake in the soft glow of a lamp, or simply seeking a calm companion for a restless night, I am very glad you are here. This space is yours to drift in, to relax into, to let your mind wander without effort or expectation. So take a moment now to get comfortable. Perhaps adjust your pillow, loosen your shoulders, and allow the breath to slow just a little. Let the tension, whatever its form, begin to soften around the edges. This is Boring History for Sleep, a slow and detailed journey designed not to excite, but to steady, not to energize, but to guide you gently toward rest, all while giving your mind something soft, ancient, and rich to drift along. And before we begin, a small reminder. Dria Moria is an entertainment channel, and although we strive to share accurate and respectful interpretations of historical and mythological material, these stories are not intended for exams, scholarly citations, or official purposes. The world of myth is complex and varied, with many versions, many retellings, and many possible meanings. Tonight, you do not need to remember every detail or consider every interpretation. You may simply listen, breathe, and let your thoughts drift, trusting that the story will hold you gently as you fall asleep. Now, when you are ready, dear listener, let us begin by traveling back into a time before memory, before humans, before the world had even settled into its familiar shape, back to the quiet dawn of the Titans, where the story of Prometheus truly begins. Travel back now, dear listener, to a time so distant and so ancient that it no longer belongs to history, nor even to myth in the form we usually understand it, but instead exists in a hazy, drifting realm where the universe is still forming itself, where the boundaries of sky and earth are not yet firm, and where creation moves with the rhythm of a long, steady breath. It is a world of possibility more than substance, a world of quiet beginnings where shapes emerge slowly from darkness and then retreat again, as though unsure of their place. Imagine, if you can, a cosmos not yet lit by the sun, a vast expanse of shadow and swirling mist, shimmering faintly with the suggestion of future light. Imagine a silence so complete, so unbroken, that it wraps around everything like a gentle cloak, softening the edges of time itself. This is the realm of chaos, the primordial void, and from this quiet void the earliest beings begin to take form, rising like soft outlines before fully stepping into existence. Gaia, the earth, emerges first, steady and enduring, followed by Uranus, the sky, broad and unbroken above her. Their union gives shape to the world, layer by layer, slowly, patiently, like a painter adding gentle strokes to the beginning of a landscape. From Gaia and Uranus come the Titans, great beings of immense presence, not yet gods in the familiar sense, but first-generation forces of nature wearing the outline of divine beings. Their names resonate through later myth: Oceanus, Tethys, Hyperion, Thea, Ceus, Phoebe, Rhea, and Cronus, each connected to an aspect of the world that humans would later understand and name. They are vast, steady, and enduring, embodying the basic elements of existence long before mortal thought gives those elements meaning. Among these titans is Iapetus, a figure less prominent in the later myths but deeply significant to the story we share tonight, because he is the father of Prometheus. Iapetus is sometimes associated with the mortal condition, with the silent boundary between possibility and limitation, and he becomes the progenitor of 4 sons whose destinies unfold in different and fascinating ways. Picture Iapetus standing on a ridge of unformed earth, surrounded by the soft glow of a young cosmos, watching as the world shifts and rearranges itself slowly beneath him. The winds are gentle, the sky is dim, and the future is a vast open plain stretching endlessly before him. From him come Atlas, tall and strong, whose fate will one day be to shoulder the heavens themselves. From him comes Menoetius, fierce and proud, destined to fall in the Titanomachy and descend into shadow. From him comes Epimetheus, gentle but forgetful, more inclined to respond after the moment has passed than to understand it while it unfolds. And from him comes Prometheus, the one whose mind reaches forward, the one who looks at the world not as it is, but as it could be, the one who sees in the raw materials of creation an opportunity for shape, meaning, and life. Imagine the 4 brothers standing together on the early earth, their forms tall and still, listening to the quiet hum of a world that is only beginning to reveal itself. The air is cool, touched by the faint scent of damp earth and young forests. The sky above them shifts slowly with muted tones of blue and gray, as though undecided on what color it wishes to become. The ground beneath them is soft and pliable, the soil rich and dark, as if waiting for something or someone to shape it. Prometheus stands slightly apart from his brothers, not out of pride or distance, but simply because his attention moves in directions the others have not yet considered. While the world is still settling into form, he is already imagining what might emerge from it one day. Creatures who walk on 2 legs, beings who speak, think, dream, and wonder, beings who look up at the sky and ask questions rather than simply exist within it. His name means foresight, and it rests on him gently, like a quiet truth he has always known. As the early world grows, the Titans shape mountains and rivers, clouds and stars, but Prometheus watches with a different kind of curiosity. He studies the curves of hills, the flowing lines of water, the soft clay that gathers in riverbeds, and he wonders whether something new and delicate might rise from these materials. He notices how the wind moves across the plains, how light filters through mist, how shadows fall in gentle patterns, and he begins to sense a potential that is both fragile and profound. Time in this early cosmos does not move quickly. It stretches outward like a long, slow note played on an ancient instrument, neither rushed nor delayed, simply unfolding at the pace it chooses. Prometheus moves within this time as though it suits him perfectly, walking across wide plains of young Earth, through forests still in the process of rooting themselves, beside rivers that have only just begun to carve their path toward the sea. He observes, listens, imagines, and considers. Meanwhile, far above, Uranus and Gaia continue their ancient patterns, and the early generations of divine beings shift slowly into place. The Titans rule under Cronus, who watches the future with unease, fearing the prophecy that one of his own children will overthrow him, just as he overthrew his father. This worry spreads across the cosmos like a thin mist, subtle but persistent. The world is peaceful in appearance, but beneath that peace lies the slow pressure of change, building quietly, preparing for the great conflict that will one day reshape the heavens, the Titanomachy. But for now, dear listener, the winds are still calm, the sky is still dim, and Prometheus continues to wander the young Earth with gentle curiosity, studying the textures and shapes of the world. His brothers move toward their destinies. Atlas with his strength, Menoetius with his forceful pride, Epimetheus with his easygoing acceptance. But Prometheus finds himself drawn not to power or conflict, but to the quiet potential of creation. Imagine him kneeling beside a river where clay gathers in smooth folds, running his hand through the cool, soft earth, feeling its weight, its texture, its promise. The sun, still a young and uncertain presence, casts a muted light across the landscape, giving everything a faint golden hue. The gentle breeze stirs the surface of the water, creating ripples that shimmer and fade, in a slow repetition that mirrors the rhythm of the cosmos itself. It is here, in this quiet place, that Prometheus first begins to imagine humanity, fragile, curious, resilient, and full of promise. It is here that the seeds of his great creation are planted, long before clay takes shape or fire enters the world. It is here, in the hush of an early afternoon on a world still learning how to be a world, that Prometheus's story truly begins. And as we rest in this moment, dear listener, we allow the landscape of early myth to settle gently around us. The dim sky, the soft earth, the quiet river, and prepare to follow Prometheus into the next chapter of his long and thoughtful journey. Turn now, dear listener, toward a quiet valley in the early world. A valley shaped softly by time and touched by the gentle breath of new winds. A place where the earth settles into smooth curves and the rivers move with a calm and steady rhythm, as though they have always known exactly where they wish to flow. The sky above hangs low and pale, washed with faint colors that shift slowly from gray to muted gold, as if deciding how much light the young world can comfortably hold. This is a place of beginnings, a place where silence does not feel empty, but instead feels full of possibility, like a deep inhalation before the first spoken word. Imagine Prometheus walking slowly through this valley, his footsteps leaving only the faintest impressions in the soft soil. Impressions that fade almost as soon as they are made, as though the earth is shy about remembering anything too clearly in these early days. The air around him is cool and still, carrying the sense of damp clay, young grass, and river water that has not yet traveled far enough to taste of salt. The world is quiet, but not lonely. The world is calm, but not stagnant. The world waits, gently and patiently, for someone to give it a shape it has not yet imagined for itself. Prometheus moves with thoughtful intention, his gaze lingering on the textures of the land. The smooth curve of a riverbank, the way shadows gather beneath a solitary tree, the faint sparkle of sunlight reflecting on shallow water. In each detail he sees potential. In each quiet space he senses the possibility of life that is not yet formed but feels close, as though it hovers just beyond the edge of perception. He kneels beside the river, allowing his hand to sink slowly into the cool clay gathered at the water's edge. It yields softly beneath his touch, smooth and pliable, carrying within it the memory of earth and water mingling for countless ages. Imagine him lifting a handful of this clay, feeling its coolness against his skin, watching as droplets fall back into the river with slow, rhythmic splashes that echo through the stillness like gentle breaths. The clay holds shape briefly, then sags, then collapses, as though waiting for someone to give it a purpose. Prometheus studies it, turning it slowly in his hands, seeing not only what it is, but what it could become. In this moment, he begins to imagine a creature unlike any the world has yet known. A creature who stands upright, whose hands can shape tools, whose mind can hold questions, whose heart can hold wonder. As he begins to work, the valley becomes an extension of his thoughts. The river murmurs softly beside him, as though offering encouragement. A slow breeze drifts across the plain, cooling his brow. The distant hills stand quietly, forming a protective boundary around this sacred place of creation. Prometheus shapes the clay with long, deliberate movements, forming limbs, forming a torso, forming a face that carries the suggestion of awareness. The figure is small and fragile compared to the beings of divine origin, but Prometheus does not intend to create another Titan or another god. He intends to create something delicate, something curious, something capable of growing, learning, and hoping. Picture him smoothing the surface of the clay, tracing the curve of a cheek, shaping fingers one by one, each movement slow and careful, as though he is listening to the clay itself, waiting to discover what it wishes to become. The world around him holds its breath. Even the river seems quieter, flowing in soft ripples that barely disturb its surface. The clay, warmed slightly by his touch, begins to take on a presence, a suggestion of life, a softness that hints at potential movement. In some tellings, dear listener, Prometheus shapes many such figures. Not just one, but dozens, perhaps hundreds, each slightly different, each reflecting a possibility within the vast imagination of a Titan who sees the world not merely as it is, but as it might one day be. In other tellings, he shapes a single form first, perfecting it slowly, revising each detail with patient care. But in all stories, the act is the same, a deliberate, thoughtful, loving creation of beings who will walk upon the earth, beings who will wonder about their place, beings who will look at the stars and feel something stir within them. When the forms are ready, Prometheus steps back and observes them with quiet satisfaction. Yet they remain still, beautiful, but motionless, shaped but not alive. The clay figures lie in rows along the riverbank, their surfaces glistening faintly in the soft light, their features serene, as though waiting for a breath they cannot draw for themselves. Prometheus knows he can shape matter, but he cannot on his own animate it. For this, he seeks the help of Athena, goddess of wisdom, who has always looked kindly on acts of thoughtful creation. Imagine Athena arriving in a soft shimmer of light, her presence gentle yet steady, like the first clarity of understanding after a long confusion. Together, she and Prometheus stand over the clay figures. With a gesture, with a breath, with a quiet whisper that resonates through the valley, like the faint ringing of a distant bell, Athena brings life into the forms. One by one, the figures rise, stretching their limbs slowly, opening eyes for the first time, gazing at the world with quiet wonder. Their movements are tentative, delicate, like the first steps of a young animal learning to walk. They look at Prometheus as though sensing that he has shaped them, and they look at Athena as though sensing that she has awakened them. This first moment of humanity is gentle, dear listener. Not dramatic, not loud, not marked by sudden revelation, but rather soft and slow, like dawn gradually spreading across a silent landscape. The humans blink at the sky, at the earth, at each other, taking in the world with a mixture of confusion and wonder. They do not yet know how to speak, how to build, how to survive, but their eyes already show a quiet spark of curiosity that distinguishes them from the beasts of the field. Prometheus watches them with a warmth that settles quietly in his chest. He has created beings who can learn, beings who can imagine, beings who can grow, beings who can one day understand themselves and their world. But as he studies them more closely, he notices something else, something that troubles him gently but persistently. These humans are fragile. They shiver in the cool air. They stumble on uneven ground. They have no fur for warmth, no claws for protection, no wings for escape. They are beautiful but vulnerable, alive but unequipped. And so Prometheus turns his attention to his brother Epimetheus, who has been given the task of distributing gifts to all living creatures. Epimetheus moves with good intentions, but he tends to act first and think later. And by the time Prometheus arrives, he has already given the sharp claws to the predators, the sturdy shells to the turtles, the swift wings to the birds, the thick fur to the mountain beasts. He has given strength to some, speed to others, camouflage to many. When Prometheus asks what remains for humanity, Epimetheus looks troubled, for he has nothing left to offer. Imagine Prometheus standing among the early humans, watching them huddle together against the cool wind, watching them tilt their heads as they study the world with eyes full of questions but bodies full of weakness. He feels a slow, deep pull in his heart, a sense of responsibility, a sense of care, a sense that he cannot leave them as they are, not when he knows they are capable of so much more than mere survival. Humans move slowly through the valley, touching the trees, dipping their hands in the river, examining the shapes of stones and leaves, each action small and curious. They are learning through observation, but their learning is slow, and Prometheus knows that without guidance, they will remain vulnerable in a world that is vast and unpredictable. He becomes their mentor in these early days, teaching them to walk more steadily, to distinguish edible plants from dangerous ones, to build simple shelters using branches and leaves. Imagine him guiding their hands, showing them how to shape tools from stone, how to weave fibers into crude coverings, how to use their curiosity as a tool for survival. He teaches not with words, for language is still forming, but with gestures, with patience, with the slow repetition that allows new skills to sink deeply into memory. Still, even with guidance, Prometheus senses that something essential is missing. The humans learn slowly, they move cautiously, and they remain vulnerable to the cold nights, the shadowed beasts, the unpredictability of the world. Prometheus begins to consider the possibility of a gift so powerful, so transformative, that it will elevate humanity above mere survival and allow them to build, to create, to imagine futures beyond the present moment. That gift, of course, is fire. But fire is not yet within their reach, not yet within their understanding. For now, Prometheus stands beside them as they gaze at the setting sun, watching as its warm light fades and leaves them in the cool embrace of early night. They look at the last rays with wonder, unaware that a new light, a brighter and more lasting light, will soon enter their world, changing their destiny forever. But that part of the story, dear listener, awaits us in the next section, where Prometheus makes a choice that alters not only the fate of humankind, but the balance between the divine and the mortal for all ages to come. Travel west now, dear listener, into a region where the young world begins to shift in quiet and subtle ways, where the hills rise gently like the slow swell of a calm sea, and where the early winds carry with them the faint scent of pine and distant stone. The sky stretches wide and pale overhead, touched by the soft glow of a sun that seems to hesitate before offering its full warmth. as though uncertain how much light this still-forming world can comfortably accept. This is a landscape of muted colors and tender transitions, a place where dawn and dusk linger longer than they do in later ages, painting the land in long, soft gradients of gold and gray. Prometheus walks among the early humans in this western place, observing their movements with quiet thoughtfulness. They gather together for warmth as the cool air settles around them, their breath rising in faint wisps that vanish quickly into the evening sky. They tilt their heads at the shifting colors of sunset, watching the world dim with a mixture of curiosity and confusion. They touch the earth, the stones, the leaves, trying to learn the nature of each thing through their fingers, through their senses, through patient trial and error. Prometheus studies them, sensing both their potential and their fragility, feeling a deep responsibility for their well-being that grows heavier with each passing day. Imagine him pausing at the crest of a gentle hill, looking down at a group of humans gathered beneath a cluster of trees. They huddle together instinctively, not from fear, but from an unspoken understanding that warmth and safety come from closeness. They have begun to form small communities, simple and tentative, but communities nonetheless. Clusters of life that depend not on strength or claws, but on cooperation, observation, and quiet resilience. Prometheus feels a slow warmth spread through him as he watches them, a quiet affection that settles into his thoughts like a soft and steady glow. Yet as evening deepens, the world grows colder. The wind sharpens. The ground cools beneath their feet. Shadows stretch long and quiet across the plains. The early humans shiver, pressing closer, their thin coverings offering little protection against the chill of dusk. Prometheus watches with a heavy heart, recognizing that no amount of instruction or guidance can change the simple truth of their physical vulnerability. Even the gentle creatures of the forest know how to weather the night better than these newly formed beings. He begins to understand slowly and clearly that the missing piece, the one gift that could elevate humanity from mere survival to flourishing, is fire. But fire, in the world of early myth, is no ordinary substance. It is not simply warmth. It is not merely light. It is a living force, a symbol of knowledge, transformation, and divine power. It dances. It consumes. It illuminates. It creates. It destroys. It is a fragment of the sun itself, a shard of celestial energy guarded carefully by the gods of Olympus, for fear that unrestrained fire might alter the balance of the world in ways they cannot control. Prometheus knows all of this. He understands the gravity of such a gift, the consequences it may bring, the risks he would face. And yet, as he watches the early humans tremble beneath the fading colors of sunset, he also knows that he cannot ignore the quiet pull of compassion that guides his heart. He created them with hope. He sees in them the potential for imagination, for wonder, for growth. Without fire, that potential may fade like the last light of day. Imagine Prometheus standing beneath the first stars of the evening, his gaze lifting toward the distant peak of Olympus, where the gods dwell in brilliance and power. The air is still around him, as though the world itself is considering the weight of the decision before him. He breathes slowly, thoughtfully, weighing the future in the quiet chambers of his mind. And then, with a calm and steady resolve, he chooses to act. The journey to Olympus is long and quiet. Prometheus moves through valleys wrapped in mist, across plains dotted with young forests, past rivers that shimmer faintly under the faint glow of starlight. The world seems to hold its breath as he walks, the leaves rustling softly, the water flowing gently, the distant hills watching in silent expectation. He climbs the great mountain not with haste, but with a deliberate rhythm, each step echoing the steady beat of determination that guides him. At the summit, the air is thin and bright. The palaces of the gods rise in shimmering forms, their surfaces glistening with the reflected light of an eternal flame that burns at the heart of Olympus, the flame from which all earthly fire is but a pale echo. This divine fire flickers with colors not seen in the mortal world, hues of gold and white and faint blue that shift like the tones of a quiet melody. It is beautiful, powerful, and forbidden. Prometheus approaches quietly, his movements slow and respectful, not out of fear, but out of reverence for the forces he is about to invoke. He reaches toward the flame, feeling its warmth before he even touches it, a warmth that settles deep in his chest like a glowing ember. Using a hollow stalk of fennel, chosen for its durability and its gentle, unassuming nature, he captures a spark from the divine fire, watching it nestle itself inside the plant's chamber, glowing softly like a hidden pulse of life. Imagine him holding the fennel stalk carefully, cradling it as though it contains something both fragile and powerful. The spark glows steadily, neither flickering nor dimming, as though recognizing that it now carries a new purpose. With the divine fire secured, Prometheus descends the great mountain, his steps steady and sure, the night air shimmering with the faint warmth radiating from the hidden flame. When he returns to the valley where the early humans have settled, they gather around him instinctively, sensing something new, something bright, something alive. Prometheus kneels among them, touching the spark gently to a cluster of dry branches. The fire catches slowly at first, then blossoms into a soft, glowing light that casts long, warm shadows across the ground. The humans recoil slightly, startled, but soon inch closer, drawn by the warmth and the gentle illumination. Imagine their faces as they gaze at fire for the first time, eyes wide with wonder, cheeks touched by golden light, bodies relaxing as the warmth seeps into their skin. Their movements become calmer, their shivering ceases, their curiosity blossoms. Prometheus shows them how to tend the flame, how to feed it, how to carry it safely, how to use it for warmth, for cooking, for protection. The fire crackles softly, its rhythm steady and soothing, like a heartbeat echoing through the night. With fire comes transformation. The humans learn to cook food, making it easier to eat and to digest. They craft pottery, shaping clay just as Prometheus shaped them. They harden wooden tools in flame. They gather in circles around the light, forming the earliest communities, sharing warmth, sharing presence, sharing stories that have not yet taken shape in language but already exist in the quiet bonds they form. The world changes slowly, gently, irrevocably. Prometheus watches with quiet satisfaction as humanity begins to grow into its potential. But far above, in the heights of Olympus, Zeus notices the glow of fire rising from the earth. He senses the shift in the balance of the world. He recognizes the act of defiance, or perhaps the act of compassion, that Prometheus has committed. For now, dear listener, let the fire continue to glow softly in your imagination. Let its warmth wrap around you like a gentle blanket. Let its light flicker behind your eyes as though illuminating the quiet corners of your thoughts. The consequences of Prometheus's gift, the banquet at Mycone, the deception, the punishment, will come soon, but not yet. For now, we rest with the fire, with the warmth it brings, with the quiet community gathered around its glow. Centuries later, or what feels like centuries in the long, unhurried rhythm of mythic time, the world settles into a quiet equilibrium shaped by Prometheus's compassion and humanity's slow, steady growth. The early people gather around firelight each evening, their faces brushed by golden warmth, their hands shaping tools, their minds beginning to form the faint outlines of language. From the flicker of flame comes memory, story, community. And yet, far above in the high, bright halls of Olympus, the warmth of fire is perceived not as a gift freely given, but as a boundary crossed, a power shared without permission. Zeus watches the world with an expression that shifts like weather, sometimes calm, sometimes clouded, sometimes inscrutable. He is a ruler who values order, who desires the clear distinction between God and mortal to remain firm and unquestioned. And now, as he gazes from the heights of Olympus, he sees mortals illuminated by fire, sees their tools grow sharper, sees their shelters become stronger. He senses a subtle shift in the balance of power, a shift that unsettles him in ways he does not fully speak aloud. But the moment that deepens this tension, the moment that creates a quiet but lasting rift between Zeus and Prometheus, occurs not in the sky, but on the earth, at a place called Mythology. Turn east now, dear listener, toward a broad plain where the land opens wide beneath a sky washed with gentle morning light. The wind here moves slowly across the grasses, whispering in long, soft currents that ripple like water. The location is serene, touched by the promise of peace, and yet fate has chosen Mythology as the site of a subtle and significant turning point. Imagine a long table, not a table of wood or stone as later ages would know it, but a symbolic feast arranged on the earth itself. The gods descend to this place in quiet procession, their forms luminous, their presence bright and unmistakable. Zeus stands among them, tall and imposing, his gaze sharp and observant. The humans approach more cautiously, guided by Prometheus, who walks with measured steps and a calm expression that hints at the thoughtful plan forming within him. This gathering, this meeting between gods and mortals, is arranged for one purpose: to determine how future offerings from humanity will be divided. Sacrifice, in these early days, is not merely an act of devotion. It is a gesture of respect, an acknowledgement of cosmic order, a ritual meant to define and reinforce the boundaries between divine and mortal realms. And yet the details of this ritual are not yet set, leaving room for negotiation, for symbolism, for quiet subversion. Prometheus, ever thoughtful, ever considering the consequences of each act, steps forward as mediator. He prepares 2 portions from a great ox, dividing them with care, shaping them with deliberate artistry. One portion consists of the rich, nourishing meat, the true sustenance, but he covers it with the rough hide and unappealing scraps, hiding the good within the uninviting. The other portion consists mostly of bones, gleaming white and hollow, but he dresses them in a layer of shimmering fat, making the lesser portion appear beautiful, enticing, impressive. Imagine these 2 offerings laid before Zeus, the morning light catching the sheen of the fat, the roughness of the hide, the contrast between appearance and essence. The air is quiet. The human representatives wait with hesitant breath. Prometheus stands in stillness, his expression unreadable, the faintest suggestion of foresight flickering in his eyes like a distant flame. Zeus studies the 2 portions, weighing them not by touch or taste, but by sight alone. He sees the fat glistening in the sun, smooth and inviting. He sees the rough hide covering the other portion, concealing what lies beneath. And in a decision shaped by pride, by certainty, by the desire for what appears most appealing, Zeus chooses the portion dressed in shining fat, the portion that offers beauty without substance. When he lifts the layer of fat and finds only bones beneath, his expression darkens, not with anger at the deception itself, but with the deeper understanding that Prometheus has shaped this moment with intention. The rite of sacrifice is now established. Humans will keep the nourishing meat for themselves, and the gods will receive the inedible bones wrapped in ceremonial fat. This moment, dear listener, is far more than a simple trick. It is a symbolic act, a quiet assertion of humanity's right to survive, to nourish itself, to retain the substance of its labor. Prometheus has offered the gods their due, but he has also ensured that the mortals he created will not starve or struggle unnecessarily. He has given them fire, and now he has given them sustenance. The reactions in Olympus ripple like distant thunder. Some gods murmur with curiosity, others with disapproval, still others with faint admiration at the cleverness of the Titan who dares to challenge the order of things. But Zeus's gaze narrows with a quiet and gathering intensity. He understands that Prometheus's actions, individually subtle, collectively profound, form a pattern of defiance, a pattern of alignment with humanity rather than with Olympus. And yet, for the moment, he does not speak. The wind moves gently across the plain of Mycone. The humans step back with quiet relief, knowing that their share of the offering will sustain them. Prometheus inclines his head respectfully, though there is something in the angle of his posture that suggests calm resolve rather than submission. And Zeus, though silent, turns away with a brewing sense of inevitability forming like a storm cloud behind his eyes. As the gods depart, the landscape returns to its soft quietness. The grasses sway. The sky shifts to a deeper shade of blue. The marks left on the earth by divine presence fade little by little, leaving behind only the memory of what occurred. Prometheus walks among the humans, offering reassurance, guiding them, reminding them gently of the importance of wise choices and careful observation. But beneath his calm exterior, he knows that his actions have set the stage for consequences that will unfold slowly, inevitably, in the chapters to come. Imagine, dear listener, the valley settling into evening once more. The firelight flickers. The humans gather together, sharing warmth, sharing food, sharing the earliest forms of community. They do not know the full nature of the conflict that has begun to take shape, nor do they sense the weight of divine attention now focused upon them. They simply live quietly and earnestly, unaware of the tension that coils like a shadow around the edges of the world. Prometheus watches them with affection, grateful for their resilience, hopeful for their future, but aware, deeply aware, that Zeus is not one to forget or forgive such a public slight. The next chapter of the story will bring a new figure into the world, a figure crafted with care and intention by the gods themselves, a figure designed not as a gift, but as an instrument of consequence. But for now, dear listener, let us rest in the soft twilight of Mycone, where the winds move gently, the fire burns steadily, and Prometheus walks with quiet resolve through a world he has helped shape. Turn south now, dear listener, toward a place where the air feels slightly warmer, where the winds move with a soft and curious energy, and where the light seems to linger just a moment longer on the surfaces of stone, leaf, and water, as though searching for something new to illuminate. Here, in the quiet halls of Olympus, a new creation begins to take shape, a creation unlike the gentle and hopeful beings formed by Prometheus beside the riverbank, and unlike the radiant gods who stride through the heavens with effortless grace. This creation will be a woman, crafted not by one divine hand, but by many, each adding a quality, a gift, a trait meant to shape her purpose and her destiny. Imagine the gods gathering in a great circle, their forms shimmering like sunlight on water, their movements slow and deliberate, as if participating in a ritual known since the beginning of time. Zeus stands at the center, his gaze steady, his thoughts quiet but resolved. He has felt the sting of Prometheus's defiance, in the fire stolen and shared, in the clever trick at Mycone. And though his expression remains calm, there is a weight in his posture that hints at intention, at consequence, at plans unfolding beneath the stillness of his surface. He calls upon the gods to fashion a being who will embody beauty, curiosity, grace, and charm, a being who will serve as an answer, not a punishment outright, but an instrument through which the divine order may assert itself once more. The gods nod, understanding the subtlety of the task. And so they begin. Hephaestus, the divine craftsman, gathers clay from the earth, shaping it with hands that move like steady waves, smoothing the surface with patience and precision. He forms the outline of a woman, tall and graceful, her limbs elegant, her features soft and harmonious. The clay takes shape beneath his touch, warm in some places, cool in others, as though responding to the intention of its creator. Athena steps forward next, placing her hand gently upon the figure, imparting the gift of skill, of intellect, of quiet grace in movement and thought. She teaches the clay how to shape and how to weave, how to understand the patterns of the world with a mind both curious and measured. Aphrodite approaches, her presence like the soft glow of dawn reflected on calm water. She leaves behind the gift of beauty, of allure, of gentle radiance that draws the eye and the heart. The figure seems to glow faintly beneath her touch, the clay warming into tones that resemble living flesh. Hermes adds the gift of speech, of persuasion, of subtlety and expression. His touch brings the possibility of clever words, of curiosity that moves like quicksilver through the mind. With his contribution, the figure gains not only charm, but also unpredictability, like a breeze that shifts direction without warning. One by one, the gods step forward, each offering a trait that will shape the woman's nature. Curiosity from Hera, musicality from Apollo, adornment from the Graces, a fragrant garland of flowers from the Horai, and the lingering mystery of desire from the deeper forces of the world. When the creation is complete, the figure stands not as clay, but as a living woman of extraordinary beauty and presence. Her eyes open slowly, adjusting to the light, reflecting curiosity and innocence in equal measure. She breathes softly, her chest rising with the quiet rhythm of life, and the gods name her Pandora, meaning all gifted. For every divine hand has contributed to her creation. Yet within her name lies a second meaning, a meaning that drifts quietly beneath the surface, as subtle as a shadow cast by a flickering flame. She is all gifted, yes, but she is also a gift, sent not simply to humanity, but specifically to Prometheus, the brother of Prometheus, the one whose nature is shaped not by foresight, but by afterthought. Imagine Pandora descending from Olympus with the grace of a falling petal, her steps light, her presence radiant. She carries with her a jar, sometimes described as a box in later retellings, sealed carefully, containing within it mysteries that the world has not yet known. The jar is smooth beneath her fingertips, cool at first, then warming slowly as if it responds to her touch. It is adorned with patterns that shift gently with the changing light, resembling vines, clouds, whispers of wind. Prometheus, wise and cautious, sees her approach and feels the stirring of unease within him. He recognizes the craftsmanship of Olympus, the intricate perfection that often conceals intention. He warns his brother Prometheus, gently, earnestly, not to accept gifts from Zeus, reminding him that divine generosity sometimes carries hidden designs, hidden consequences, hidden threads that bind those who grasp them. But Prometheus, warm-hearted and easily charmed, gazes upon Pandora with wonder. Her presence is soothing, her smile serene, her voice gentle as a breeze moving through tall grass. He finds no suspicion within himself, no caution, no hesitation. He accepts her gladly, gratefully, lovingly. And so Pandora enters the human world. Imagine her walking among the early humans, observing their lives with curiosity, learning their gestures, their rhythms, their quiet joys. She becomes a part of their small communities, her laughter soft, her movements graceful. She tends to flowers, gathers water, listens to stories spoken in the earliest forms of language. Yet always the jar remains near her, sealed, mysterious, glimmering faintly in the soft light of morning or the warm glow of evening fire. Curiosity, the divine gift Hermes placed within her, stirs gently at first, like a breeze brushing across the surface of still water. She wonders what lies inside the jar. She wonders why it is sealed. She wonders why she was told not to open it. The thought returns to her again and again, each time a little stronger, like a distant melody becoming clearer with each repetition. Imagine Pandora sitting alone one afternoon, the jar resting beside her on the ground. A soft wind moves through the valley. Leaves rustle. The sunlight shifts in long, slow beams across the landscape. She places her hand upon the lid, feeling its weight, its smoothness, its subtle warmth. The world seems to hold its breath. Even the birds grow quiet. She lifts the lid. At first, the opening is small, barely enough to allow a sliver of air to escape. But even this is enough. A soft hiss fills the space around her as shadows and murmurs rise from the jar, drifting into the world like mist escaping from a sealed cavern. They swell outward, taking shape as sorrows, hardships, illnesses, uncertainties, and pains that humanity has not yet known. They swirl around Pandora in spiraling currents, their presence heavy yet strangely insubstantial, like smoke that leaves no scent but lingers with weight. Frightened, Pandora tries to close the jar, pressing down the lid with trembling hands, her breath catching in her throat, her heart quickening into a rhythm she cannot calm. She manages to seal the jar once more, her palms shaking, her thoughts swirling like the shadows that escaped. Inside, something remains. A faint glow, soft and steady, like the last ember of a dying flame. This final presence does not rise, does not escape. It lingers at the bottom of the jar, elpis or hope. Though the world now carries sorrow, hardship, and uncertainty, hope remains as a gentle companion, a quiet resilience, a soft light that guides humanity through the shadows. Prometheus senses the shift almost immediately. The air feels different. The world holds new weight. Yet his heart does not turn cold or bitter. Instead, he understands that even in sorrow, humanity will persevere. They will endure. They will adapt. They will find meaning in the spaces between joy and difficulty. Prometheus holds Pandora close, calming her trembling hands, reminding her that the opening of the jar is not an unforgivable act, but a part of the long and winding path of human experience. And Pandora, though shaken, still carries within her the gifts of beauty, curiosity, and resilience. Gifts that help humanity navigate the challenges that have now entered the world. Prometheus, however, knows that Zeus sees this moment not as an accident, but as a step in a larger balance of cause and consequence. Fire was given. Sacrifice was shaped. Humanity gained strength. Now the world has gained hardship to temper that strength. The scales begin to steady themselves, at least from the divine perspective, but Zeus's gaze is not yet softened. There remains one more chapter of consequence, a chapter carved not in pottery or in clay, but in stone and suffering, waiting quietly atop a lonely mountain where Prometheus will soon be led. Before we climb that mountain, dear listener, let us rest in the gentle aftermath of Pandora's story. The jar is closed. Hope remains. The winds move softly once more. Travel north now, dear listener, into a region where the world becomes quieter, more austere, more shaped by the long fingers of wind and stone. The air carries a sharper chill here, moving in deliberate currents that sweep across the rocky slopes and whisper through narrow valleys with a voice that has known centuries of solitude. The sky stretches wide and pale above the landscape, washed with soft tones of silver and blue that shift slowly as though the heavens themselves are caught in thoughtful contemplation. This is a place where time seems to move differently, not in hurried steps, but in slow, measured breaths, the kind that echo across vast, empty distances. In this northern place rises a lonely mountain ridge, its peaks worn by age, its cliffs carved into jagged patterns by wind and weather, its shadows deep and still. Zeus has chosen this mountain as the place where Prometheus will endure his punishment, not because it is harsh in the dramatic sense, but because it is vast, isolated, and indifferent, a landscape that reflects the quiet, unyielding nature of the sentence the Titan must now face. Imagine Prometheus standing at the base of this mountain, the winds tugging gently at his form, the earth beneath his feet rough and uneven. He understands the nature of what is about to unfold. He does not plead. He does not argue. His expression is calm, contemplative, reflecting a mind that sees further than the present moment, a mind rooted in foresight rather than fear. He has known all along that the gifts he gave to humanity, fire, knowledge, sustenance, would carry consequences. And now those consequences have arrived, not as a sudden storm, but as a slow, inevitable tide. Zeus commands that Prometheus be bound to the high cliffs where the winds never rest and the sun lingers long and mercilessly. Not as an act of rage, but as a symbolic restoration of cosmic order. The mortal world has been uplifted, and so the divine world asserts its authority through a punishment that matches the magnitude of Prometheus's defiance. Hephaestus, the god of craftsmanship, approaches with tools forged in fire and tempered by divine skill. His steps are slow, heavy with reluctance, for though he serves Zeus's command, he bears no ill will toward Prometheus. In some tellings, he speaks softly, apologetically, his words drifting into the air with the fragile weight of regret. But Prometheus offers him a gentle nod, a silent acknowledgement that the task must be carried out, that the order of things has been set in motion. Hephaestus binds Prometheus with chains of unbreakable metal, each link forged with intention and precision, each knot secured with a firmness that reflects not anger but inevitability. The chains are cold at first, then warm slightly as they rest against the Titan's skin, conforming to the shape of his body as though recognizing their role in the story. He is fastened to the rock, arms extended, body pressed against the rough stone, feet anchored firmly. Not in a pose of agony, but in one of endurance, of stillness, of quiet resignation. Imagine the moment after the last chain is secured. The wind blows steadily, carrying the scent of distant pine and the faint mineral tang of the mountains. The sky is vast above him, open and pale, stretching endlessly toward horizons that blur into soft gradients of light. Prometheus breathes slowly, deeply, allowing the air to settle into his chest, allowing the reality of his new existence to sink into the long rhythm of time that stretches ahead. Zeus decrees that a great eagle, a creature vast in wingspan, sharp in perception and relentless in instinct, will visit Prometheus each day. The eagle arrives not as a dramatic burst of wings, but as a slow, inevitable descent from the heights, its feathers catching the sunlight in shimmering patterns, its movement steady and unhurried. It is a creature shaped for endurance, for repetition, for the unbroken cycle that will define Prometheus's days. The eagle lands upon the narrow ledge with a soft rustle of feathers, its talons gripping the rock with quiet strength. It gazes at Prometheus with eyes that reflect not malice, but the simple, instinctive understanding of a creature fulfilling its purpose. And then, with a deliberate, practiced motion, it begins the task set upon it by Zeus, an act described in myth as a daily devouring of Prometheus's liver, a part of him that regenerates each night, renewing the cycle indefinitely. But in our telling, dear listener, we soften the edges of this mythic image, not to erase the meaning, but to allow the story to remain gentle, calming, and conducive to rest. Imagine instead that the eagle represents the slow erosion of time, the daily trials that wear upon the spirit, the quiet burdens that weigh on the heart yet do not extinguish its flame. Each day the eagle arrives. Each day, a part of Prometheus's strength is taken. Each night, that strength returns, renewed by his enduring resolve, by his unbroken spirit, by the quiet knowledge that he acted out of compassion out of foresight, out of love for the fragile beings he shaped with his own hands. The cycle continues, day after day, year after year, century after century, a rhythm as steady as the tides, as predictable as the turning of seasons, as unchanging as the mountain itself. The eagle comes, the eagle leaves, the wind blows, the sun moves across the sky. Prometheus endures. He does not cry out. He does not curse the heavens. He allows the days to pass over him like flowing water, like drifting clouds, like quiet footsteps moving across a landscape that has known many stories before this one, and will know many more after. Imagine the mountain at dawn, the light spreading slowly across the cliffs, touching Prometheus's face with soft warmth. Imagine the mountain at noon, the sun standing high above, casting sharp shadows that stretch and recede with the changing hours. Imagine the mountain at night, the sky deep and dark, filled with stars that shimmer like distant embers of forgotten fires. Prometheus remains through it all, still and steadfast, his thoughts wandering across the vast expanse of time. He reflects on humanity, on their firelit gatherings, their early tools, their growing voices, their persistence in the face of new and uncertain challenges. He knows that they now carry sorrow, hardship, fear, gifts that escaped Pandora's jar. Yet he also knows they carry hope, the quiet force that remains at the bottom of the vessel, glowing softly like an ember that refuses to fade. And in this way, the punishment becomes not merely a sentence, but a vigil. Prometheus watches the world from his high and lonely ridge. He sees storms form in the distance, sees forests stretch and thicken, sees rivers carve deeper paths through the earth. He sees humanity change, grow, adapt, dream. He witnesses the rise of small villages, the shaping of stone dwellings, the first sparks of culture and belief. His suffering, though deep, becomes intertwined with the story of the world he helped create. Time passes in long, slow waves. Eventually, a whisper of change stirs in the air, a hint of footsteps approaching along ancient paths, a shift in the wind's tone, a softening in the tension that has held the world in place for so long. A hero will come, a new chapter will open, but not yet. For now, dear listener, the mountain remains quiet, the eagle circles in distant arcs, and Prometheus endures with a patience shaped by centuries of foresight. Before we move on, rest a moment within this image. The stillness of the mountain, the soft hum of wind, the slow procession of clouds drifting across the sky. Prometheus waits. The world turns. The myth continues. Centuries pass, dear listener, not in hurried strides, but in long, sweeping motions, like the slow drift of clouds across a vast and ancient sky. Time expands in gentle arcs around the lonely mountain, settling over the cliffs in soft layers that accumulate like dust, like snow, like memory. The winds continue their ceaseless passage, humming softly in tones that almost resemble distant voices. The eagle maintains its daily rhythm, descending with wings spread wide, completing the cycle appointed by Zeus. And Prometheus endures, his form a quiet silhouette against the stone, his mind wandering through endless reflections, his spirit neither broken nor diminished by the weight of suffering. Imagine the mountain at sunrise, the first light brushing across the horizon in long, delicate strokes, illuminating the edges of rock and shadow. Prometheus watches the world awaken each morning, his gaze wandering across forests that grow and shift with the passing generations, across rivers that carve new shapes into the earth, across distant plains where humanity slowly blossoms into new forms of life. He sees their shelters become sturdier, their gatherings more frequent, their languages more complex. He sees firelight flicker in the night like scattered stars, human communities glowing with warmth and resilience. Though the pain is constant, the Though the chains are unyielding, Prometheus finds solace in observation. He sees the world change because of what he gave. He sees humanity learn and grow, falter and rise, lose hope and find it again. And through it all, he whispers to the winds, not words perhaps, but thoughts shaped by infinite patience. Thoughts that drift down the slopes and mingle with the breaths of those who live beside the fire he once carried. Yet even in the vastness of mythic time, cycles do not last forever. There comes a moment, quiet and subtle at first, when the rhythm shifts, a moment when footsteps approach along ancient paths carved by fate long before mortals or gods named them. A hero, destined for great deeds, has begun his journey. His name is Heracles, and though he does not yet know it, his path will soon intersect with that of the bound Titan. Imagine Heracles traveling through rugged terrain, his stride steady, his strength immense yet unboastful, his presence calm but unmistakably powerful. His journey is shaped by labors, riddles, dangers, and trials, but it is also shaped by moments of unexpected compassion and clarity. As he approaches the northern mountains, he senses the quiet heaviness of the landscape, the weight of a story unfolding long before his birth, the hum of divine consequence woven into the fabric of the cliffs. The winds shift as he nears the high ridge. The eagle circles overhead, its wings cutting long shadows across the ground. Prometheus lifts his gaze, sensing the presence of someone new. Not a god sent to reinforce his punishment, not a creature driven by instinct, but a mortal hero whose destiny moves with a rhythm both ancient and vibrant, like a melody played on a timeless instrument. Heracles climbs the ridge slowly, each step steady and deliberate, as though he understands instinctively that he is entering a place shaped by suffering, endurance, and profound meaning. When he reaches the ledge where Prometheus is bound, he pauses, allowing the quiet of the moment to settle around him. The chains glint faintly in the evening light. The rock holds the marks of years upon years of unbroken vigil. The eagle's shadow passes overhead again, circling lower, preparing to descend in its daily rhythm. Prometheus meets Heracles' gaze, and in that shared moment, something subtle yet powerful drifts between them. Recognition, perhaps, or sympathy, or the silent acknowledgement of two beings shaped by struggle and persistence. Heracles takes in the scene with thoughtful stillness, understanding without explanation that this suffering has gone on long enough. As the eagle swoops downward, Heracles moves with quiet precision. He draws his bow, a smooth and practiced motion, the arrow gliding through the air like a whisper, striking the great bird with clean certainty. The eagle falls, its wings folding like sighs of old wind, its long task complete at last. Imagine the stillness that follows, a deep, profound stillness that settles over the mountain like a soft blanket, wrapping the cliffs in a moment of reprieve. The winds quiet their voices. The sky seems to open slightly, allowing a gentler light to shine upon the bound Titan. Heracles steps forward and breaks the chains that bind Prometheus. He does not do this with a sense of triumph or challenge, but with a calm, solemn understanding that he is restoring something that should have been restored long ago. The chains fall away with a heavy sound, settling onto the rocks like tired relics of an age that is slowly passing. Prometheus takes his first unbound breath in centuries, a breath so deep and slow that the entire mountain seems to exhale with him, releasing a tension held in its stone for ages. He stands, his limbs stiff from immobility, yet his posture dignified, his gaze steady. The wind brushes gently across his skin, cool and unfamiliar after so many lifetimes of restraint. Zeus, observing from Olympus, does not strike Heracles down. Instead, he allows this liberation, for Heracles' deed is destined, woven into the tapestry of his labors. Moreover, a greater balance must be kept, a balance that has shifted many times through Prometheus's choices and will shift again through prophecy. Prometheus, now freed, approaches Zeus with knowledge he has held close throughout his suffering. In some versions of the myth, he reveals a prophecy, a warning that Zeus must avoid a certain union that would result in a child more powerful than himself. This knowledge, subtle and essential, carries the weight of cosmic order. Zeus, recognizing the value of foresight, accepts it, and the tension between king and titan begins, slowly and gently, to ease. Yet Prometheus does not return to Olympus. He chooses instead to remain closer to the world of mortals, drawn to the firelight he once bestowed upon them, drawn to the fragile and enduring spirit of humankind. He becomes a symbol, not of rebellion, but of perseverance, not of punishment, but of compassion, not of defiance, but of the deep and often difficult path of helping those who struggle. Imagine him walking beside rivers he once knew, watching new communities rise where there were once only scattered figures, seeing humanity's quiet innovations, their stories, their art, their hopes glowing like embers in the night. He sees firelight reflected in the eyes of those who gather to share warmth, to tell stories, to dream aloud in voices shaped by centuries of learning and longing. He understands that their hardships, the sorrows released from Pandora's jar, are part of the human condition, inseparable from the growth and resilience that define their lives. Yet he also understands that hope remains with them always, steady and gentle, like the soft glow at the bottom of the jar, like a small flame that refuses to go out even in the darkest moments. Prometheus becomes, through time, a figure whose presence is felt more than seen, a whisper of encouragement in the quiet hours, a spark of insight in moments of uncertainty, a reminder that compassion can reshape worlds, even when the cost is great. And so, dear listener, the story of Prometheus stretches far beyond the mountain, far beyond the eagle, far beyond the fire and the jar. It continues in the way humanity learns, grows, falters, and rises again. It continues in every act of creation, in every moment of understanding, in every spark of inspiration that flickers through the mind. It continues in the long echo of myth itself, a gentle reminder that stories endure because they speak to something deep and enduring within us. Prometheus, the titan of foresight, the shaper of humankind, the bringer of fire, lives on not in chains, but in the quiet glow that illuminates the human journey, generation after generation, age after age. And so, dear listener, we drift now toward the quiet end of our long journey, moving gently away from the mountain ridge where Prometheus once endured centuries of stillness, and away from the firelit valleys where early humanity slowly learned to stand, to speak, to dream. We drift instead into a softer realm, where the echoes of the past mingle with the quiet hum of the present, forming a slow and thoughtful melody that carries the story home. As we reflect on Prometheus's tale, we see that it is not merely a story of defiance or punishment, not merely a tale of gods and titans shaping the world in their image, but a story about the delicate, persistent thread that connects creation to responsibility, knowledge to compassion, endurance to hope. Prometheus acts because he sees what could be, not simply what is. And in doing so, he becomes a symbol of the gentle courage required to nurture something fragile into something lasting. He endures because he believes in the potential of those he shaped with his own hands, believing in the spark of curiosity that lives within them, believing in the quiet resilience that helps humans rise again after each hardship, believing in the soft glow of hope that remains even when the world seems shadowed or uncertain. He endures because every act of kindness carries within it a seed of consequence, and yet he accepts those consequences with calm understanding, knowing that compassion often asks more of us than we expect and gives more to others than we may ever see. He endures because foresight is not merely the ability to predict what will come, but the willingness to act in service of a future one may never personally experience, placing trust in a world that will continue to grow long after one's own story has reached its quiet conclusion. And humanity endures alongside him, growing slowly, imperfectly, beautifully, shaped not only by fire or sorrow, but also by the deep desire to learn, to create, to remember, and to become something greater than they were before. They gather around the warmth of flame, sharing stories that stretch across generations, stories that carry traces of the Titan who first offered them the gift of light, the gift of possibility. In this way, Prometheus's legacy settles into the quiet places of the world, into the soft glow of a hearth on a cold night, into the steady rhythms of learning and imagination, into the moments of clarity that arrive unexpectedly after long uncertainty. His story endures because it is, in many ways, our story too. A story about struggle, resilience, hope, and the quiet determination to move forward even when the path is slow and the weight is heavy. And so, as we let the final moments of this myth drift gently through our thoughts, we understand that Prometheus remains with us not as a distant figure from an ancient age, but as a quiet companion in the ongoing journey of humankind. A presence that whispers gently of foresight, of courage, of compassion, and of the enduring flame that burns softly within us all. And now, dear listener, as the echoes of this story settle into stillness, I invite you to rest, to breathe slowly, to allow your thoughts to soften and scatter like quiet leaves drifting across a calm river. The tale of Prometheus continues in dreams, in memories, in the soft glow of imagination that lingers long after the story has ended. You have walked gently through ancient valleys, climbed wind-worn mountains, and watched fire illuminate the earliest human hands. And now you may let all of it fade into a peaceful hush. May your night be calm, may your breath be steady, and may sleep find you with ease, settling over you like a warm and comforting blanket. The story continues, but for now, dear listener, you may rest. Sleep well. Good night.